Hey guys, Jason here once again with the SG1 Sports Channel. Thank you for tuning in. Let's talk some LSU football, and even more specifically, let's talk about the concerns LSU has after last season's departures, some holes that need filling after, spring camp evaluations and concerns they had throughout the summer heading into fall camp. So let's look at the 4 big questions that LSU must answer in fall camp. Question number 1 is, can the tight ends be more of a factor in LSU's offense this year? Now, after last season, they brought in a new passing game coordinator in Joe Brady, and along with veteran offensive coordinator Steve Ensminger, they love to stretch the field vertically and horizontally with their tight ends. They're wanting a big athletic kid that can run, that can play in 3-down situations, play in line, a guy that can really, cause havoc up the middle of the field. The problem with that is the only tight end that caught a pass for him last year, Foster Moreau, he's off to the NFL. Now they've got some guys returning from injury that they're high on. James Pettigrew's got 1 career catch, is coming off an injury. Thaddeus Moss is coming off an injury. They've got Steven Sullivan, was a wide receiver who has bulked up and has moved to tight end, and they're really high on his skill set. They're also really high on JUCO recruit TK McClendon, who looks as if he's a plug-and-play kid. So until these guys catch some balls, the concern is still going to be there, and the jury is still out about LSU's tight ends for the 2019 season. Question number 2 is, can LSU find depth along the defensive line? There are some amongst the LSU faithful who have some dire concerns about the LSU football program, not as a whole, mind you, but concerning LSU's defensive line with the early departure of Ed Alexander, the pending transfer of freshman Dominic Livingston, and now the attempted transfer just last week by freshman Davin Cotton, who put his name in the portal and was quickly whisked away to the swamps of the bayou for an old heart-to-heart talk, who then, upon his return, quickly withdrew his name from the portal. But if you look at LSU's roster, the lack of depth can't solely be blamed on the departures or injuries, but more so, I think, to an oversight, if you will, in either recruiting or player development or both. LSU has talent, crazy talent. They always have, even more so, I think, than Alabama. They're always loaded with freakish talent, and I don't care what kind of star you put out beside their names, they always end up with just some unbelievable athletes. But taking a look at what they're returning, they do return Rashad Lawrence, who was a Fiesta Bowl MVP last year. Breeden Fehoko at the other end is going to be returning. Tyler Shelvin, has played some games at nose tackle, so they look for him to take a step up. Glenn Logan has contributed pretty well with 46 career tackles and 4 sacks in 25 games. Neil Farrell Jr. is coming back to back up one of the defensive ends. He's got 28 tackles with 4 sacks, so they're looking for him to take a step forward. Justin Thomas, expect him to get some more snaps. So the starting line looks pretty solid. It's just a matter of the depth behind it. So, even though I believe they are, I don't know if they have to rebuild the depth. It may be there. So until they develop some players for those positions, that question's still going to need to be answered, and it needs to be answered pretty quickly. Question number 3 is, can LSU protect Joe Burrow? That was a big question for them last year. They had some really big struggles at times keeping Joe Burrow upright and within a safe, clear pocket. Now, if you look at what they're returning, they do have 4 starters back. They've got 4 more, who have started at various points. Lloyd Cushenberry's coming back at center. He's consistent and should be their anchor. Sadiq Charles should retain his left tackle spot. Damian Lewis should also retain his right guard position. Austin DeCulis has played right tackle and left guard. And look at Adrian McGee and Chasen Hines and Badera Tredoris to come back and help fill some of those voids. But they need to be more consistent and find a starting five. They started 6 different lineups for much of the season last year. And they also allowed the most negative plays than any team at LSU has since 2009. Now, look, we talked about it earlier. They've got a new passing game coordinator in Joe Brady. A lot of his schemes are a lot more quick passes, short pockets. So there's may not be as much time for Joe Burrow to get rattled and allow this offensive line to develop some continuity. But until that happens and they get a little experience, that concern is still going to be there this season. And question number 4 is, can the special teams be productive and dependable? Now, I know a lot of you may be asking, why I'm even thinking that this should be a concern, but, because on the surface, LSU special teams are pretty solid. Look, their punter, Zach Von Rosenberg, may be one of the top 2-3 punters in the country. He's got a 44.6 career average, which is the best in school history. He averaged 45.7 yards a punt last year. He's on the Ray Guy Award finalist preseason list. So they're solid in that position. Cole Tracy came in last year and solidified the kicking game for him. He was 29 of 33 on field goals. And that was last year, and it was his only year. Now the job falls to Cade York, who hasn't had a kick. So that's where the concern arises. And also in punt returns, they were ninth with 5.8 yards per return. So, the kicking game late in games and punt returns are sneaky yardage that you can really make up some ground on during games. And the schedule they have and the opportunity they have this year, because I think they've got a big one to do some really special things, is going to hinge a lot of times on these special teams. And, can they get product when they need it, and can they be dependable when they need it this year?